Did you ever read Zen in the Brain, Dr. James Austin?
I've heard of that. I haven't read it. I've read a lot of the related literature, but...
Well, I hope I'm not getting in over my head here. I teach this class called The Inward Journey. I've been teaching it for about 3 or 4 years. The first 2 weeks, and it parallels the MBSR. First 2 weeks is where they write out a chronology. 3 generations back. I have them tag everybody for length of lifespan, incarceration, education, and relationships. And I have them map it out as best they can. And I tell them, we're going to do it heavy for 2 weeks, but you need to keep this up for a long time because you need to ask, different people you have access to, is this what happened or what happened there? And then what happens out of that is trends, themes, patterns start to emerge. And when you can see a linear visualization of this, all of a sudden, well, addictions have been running since grandma. And then I take that, and in the next 6 weeks, are you familiar with Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey? Well, you got the going, you got the transformation, and you got the return. And so what I do is I have them write their re-entry plans, but, from sentencing back is where they came from. People, places, and things. And then I have the transformation while they're in prison. And I have them, point out where these people that were so important in their life previous, what role are they playing while you're in prison? And then I have the EOS, end of sentence date, on. And I say, okay, now, these people that you knew before, these people that you met in here, and what role are you going to have them play here? And then I underlining the whole thing is what is the cosmic glue that gives meaning to your life? What is your direction? And if they say kids, I say Ron. Most EOS plans in this hero's journey, Johnny's going to meet me at the gate and we're going to do really well. And what I try to point him to college or something like that. But I say, okay, he doesn't show up to meet you at the gate. What's plan B? And I work him through plan A, B, and C. But, the details of it. And, what I would like to think, and what happens a lot, is that they walk out and they got a sense of what's going to be waiting for them. Because now it's no longer, well, I haven't been communicating with them and, all this stuff. And it seems to work better, and having that direction, understanding that everything rotates and is what, all decisions are made against this one little piece of what am I living for, And another thing I did, and this is going to sound really hokey, but I also do programs at the VA. And I went and I got every plan, program, or whatever you want to call it, for that I could find on troops coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan. And I took that information, those programs, and I put them in WordPerfect, or Microsoft Word, and I did a search and replace. And every time it said Afghanistan, Iraq, or theater of operations, or something like that, I put in the words prison. Every time it said soldier, sailor, whatever, I put in the word ex-offender. And then I took those papers and I took them to psychologists and psychiatrists that I knew in the prison system. I said, what do you think about this? They said, oh my God, where did you get that? And I have it on the internet too. And what I'm finding, and I use that with Inward Journey, is that when the inmate has a reasonably supportive element, they can go through this stuff at the same time the inmate goes through it. So that when they come back, everybody's singing on the same sheet of music. And I haven't gotten much feedback from that one yet, but it's been up there for about a year and a half.
Wow.
And
Take a look at it.
yeah, it works pretty nicely, but it's these kids, number one, aren't coming from great environments. And there's just, my guess is probably less than 10% are going back to environments that are going to be supportive.
Oh, yeah. And let's say, if they're going back to the same environment they came from, they've got to have some really strong directional compass established to not fall back into what they were doing before. It's tough.
That's why I think the character dorms are so important, because it takes them out of, it breaks the contact with the disruptive and bad elements, if you will. And it gives them a chance to be in an environment where, number one, it's supportive. If I can get control of the correction officers, they get assigned to the dorm. And also, they get to start new habits, plasticity of the brain. And if their communication, moves from aggressive, passive to assertive, and if they get used to reading, and if they get used to just, letting their emotions, not drive them, they say, okay, I'm angry, okay, take a breath. If they can start that road, their chances of survival in any environment is much better. But it's going to take a year in that environment, because there's certain pathways that really have to be done. And women, that have kids, that have been separated from kids, will put themselves in harm's way trying to reestablish the fantasy.
I really liked what you said about doing the family history work with the women, because I think, if we can get that we have some kind of conditioning that's really running our life, if we can really get it, that our brain got programmed by generations of stuff, and it's driving our life. And if we don't like the places it's taken us, and we really can kind of really see that clearly, and see that there really is a possibility to stand outside of that and begin to have some impact on that, begin to be able to say no to it, begin to manage it, begin to transform it. I think that if people can see that clearly enough, there can be an awakening of a potential, a possibility of freedom there that can be an incredibly motivating factor. But they have to really see it clearly, because most of us were so caught, that's just the way I am, that's my life, that's all I know, that's just how I react.
Their house is their universe.
Yeah, and so they have to somehow get outside and go, oh my God, here's this junk that got passed down to my family, and it's driving me all over the place, and I'm just getting dragged along for the ride. If people can really see that, there's a new possibility.
Have you got a